I came home from the garden warehouse to find my gear dumped in the driveway. My mother was filming, yelling, "You're 29, living in my garage like a mooch. Get out." My sister was livestreaming. Watch the family DWIGHD finally leave. My father threw keys at my face. "You're not our son." I just smiled and said, "You'll hear from me very soon." I still remember the way my mom's coffee smelled that morning. A cheap hazelnut blend she always bought on sale, mixed with that dusty vanilla candle she refused to throw away. For a second, it almost felt like home again. Almost. My name's Darren. I guess I should start there. I'm 29, a marine mechanic by trade. Grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, fixing outboard motors with my grandfather before I could even spell carburetor. These days, I live in my parents' garage. Or, I did. It started 8 months ago, when the dockyard laid off half the team. Corporate restructure, they said. No warning, just a clipboard and a handshake. I spent weeks combing every marina up and down the coast, even looked inland, but nobody was hiring. Not for what I do, not with the union frozen and everyone afraid to commit. So, I swallowed my pride and asked my parents if I could move into the garage. It was technically converted, which just meant someone threw up drywall in the 90s and slapped in a used mini fridge. They asked for $400 a month in rent. I agreed without hesitation. To pay it, I picked up part-time work at Green Harbor Garden and Supply, unloading pallets of mulch and potting soil for barely above minimum wage. It was humiliating, but it kept gas in the truck and ramen on the hot plate. Most nights, I came home too exhausted to care, kept my head down, saved what I could, and hoped something would change. And finally, it did. Last Friday, I landed an interview at Charleston Yachting Services. Big-name spot, high-end clientele, and by some miracle, they offered me a full-time marine technician position, $72,000 a year, benefits, and actual room for growth. I damn near cried on the drive home. That morning, the coffee morning, I sat across from my mom at the tiny round kitchen table and told her the good news. "I start Monday," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's everything I've been working toward." She nodded absently, staring into her mug like it held answers. "Well," she said finally, "make sure you don't mess it up." It stung, but I let it slide. I knew she wasn't one for emotions. I took the last sip of my own coffee, told her thanks for everything, and went off to work the garden shift. When I got back that evening, my heart dropped before I even turned into the driveway. All my stuff, clothes, toolbox, the bookcase my grandfather made me when I was 10, was piled in the driveway like junk. Soaked. It had rained while I was at work, and everything I owned was drenched. My duffel bags were split open, underwear and socks stuck to the pavement. My work boots, the ones I'd worn for 6 years, were tossed into the hedges like trash. My welding gear, ruined. Books, swollen and ruined. My journals? God knows. The neighbors stood at the edge of their lawns, filming on their phones. One woman whispered something to her kid and pointed. Another man just laughed and said, "Guess freeloading has an expiration date." I didn't understand. I hadn't done anything wrong. Rent was paid. I was quiet. I barely ate inside the house. And I had just told them things were turning around. Then I saw my little sister, Riley, on the porch, holding her phone up like she was recording a TikTok. "Go on," she said, smirking. "Tell them how you're totally not a parasite." My chest burned. I walked up, slow and careful, trying not to look angry. "What the hell is this?" My mom appeared in the doorway. "We've had enough," she said, her voice louder than usual, almost like she was performing. "You said a few months. It's been almost a year." "I've been working," I said quietly. "I just told you. I got a full-time job. I start Monday." "You mean the job you say you got?" she replied, crossing her arms. "People like you always make promises. Doesn't mean anything." "People like me?" She ignored me. My dad stepped out behind her, holding a trash bag full of my laundry. He didn't say a word, just dropped it onto the wet pile. "Guess it's your big moving day," he muttered. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stood there as the cameras rolled and my life, soggy and steaming, lay scattered across the concrete. I looked up at my mom. "Why would you do this now?" "Because we're done pretending," she said. "You're not our responsibility anymore." I stood there another moment. The rain had stopped, but everything still smelled like wet asphalt and sour betrayal. Then I picked up what I could carry, my soaked toolbox, one duffel bag, and the books that hadn't turned to mush, and walked to my truck. As I climbed in, Riley shouted, "Don't forget to Venmo us for the driveway stain." And from the driver's seat, door still open, I looked at them all, my mom, my dad, my sister, and said calmly, "You'll hear from me soon." Then I drove away, windshield wipers squeaking even though the sky had cleared. They thought they'd crushed me. They had no idea what was coming next. By the time I parked at the curb again, my hands had finally stopped shaking. I told myself maybe there had been a misunderstanding. Maybe Riley was being dramatic. Maybe Mom hadn't really meant to dump everything outside like I was a stray dog who'd overstayed his welcome. But that hope vanished the second I turned the corner and saw her, standing in the middle of the lawn, phone in hand, talking into it like she was on a morning show. "I just couldn't take it anymore," she was saying, her voice syrupy and fake. "Some people don't know when to leave. You give them a garage, and they think they own the house. She spun the phone around to show the pile of my belongings still strewn across the driveway. My duffel bag was torn open now, contents spilled out like trash. My tool belt, the one my granddad gave me before he passed, was sitting on top of a garbage bin. That's when it hit me. She was live streaming to her cooking blog followers. See, she continued, we tried being nice, but at some point, you have to draw a line. Tough love, people. That's what real parenting looks like. My throat went dry. I started walking toward the pile, trying to gather my things. A pair of my socks was stuck to the sidewalk. I knelt to peel them off, and that's when I heard Riley's voice again. Wait, guys, look who's here, she said, turning her phone toward me. The freeloading garage goblin has arrived. She was filming vertically, of course, probably adding stupid text across the top, like, when your broke brother won't leave your house. Her makeup was perfect, as always, hairstyled like she was about to sell flat irons on Instagram Live. Riley, turn that off, I said without looking up. No thanks, she said. My followers are invested. I already told them how much you owe us. Over $3,000 in garage fees, right? I stood up, holding my breath to keep from losing it. I paid rent every single month. You know that. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, and our water bill tripled. Coincidence? I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, I heard a thud, one of my bags being kicked across the concrete. I turned. It was Kevin, my older brother, beer in hand, eyes bloodshot and smug as hell. He walked up, gave the bag another kick, then pointed at me like I was something he found stuck to his shoe. You still here, he said. Thought you'd be halfway to a truck stop by now. Get out of the way, I muttered. He laughed. Oh, come on. Can't take a joke? What? You got all sensitive living in that little man cave. My hands clenched. I looked past him, toward the porch, where my dad now stood. He wasn't holding anything this time, just watching. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out the spare house keys I had given him months ago, the only set I had besides the ones in my truck, and hurled them. They hit me square in the chest. 30 minutes, he said flatly. Then we're calling the cops. I blinked. You serious? Dead serious. You're throwing me out, I said, on camera, in front of the neighbors, after everything. You're not a child? My mother cut in. We're done supporting you. I never asked for support. I shot back. I asked for a place to stay while I found work. I paid rent. I stayed out of the way. I told you this morning I got a full-time job. She didn't even flinch. You didn't show us a contract. Kevin took a swig of his beer and belched. Man probably made it up. You know he lies. Always had that weird need for sympathy. Riley tilted her phone again, zooming in on my face. Come on, say something dramatic. My audience loves a good breakdown. That's when I realized this was never about me being a burden. This was about control, about attention, about making a spectacle out of someone else's pain so they could feel superior. I looked around the neighborhood. 2 more people were watching from across the street, phones in hand, faces full of quiet judgment. Another neighbor walked her dog by slowly, clearly pretending not to listen. I knelt and zipped what I could into the ripped duffel bag. My tools were mostly rusted now. A few paperbacks had disintegrated completely. I picked up what was salvageable and tossed the rest. No yelling, no begging, no tears. When I got to my truck and opened the passenger door, I turned one last time. Enjoy the views, I said quietly. You'll be hearing from me soon. Kevin laughed, stumbling a little. Oh no, not the classic you'll hear from me. What are you gonna do? Write a Yelp review. Riley cackled, flipping her camera back to her own face. That's a wrap, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Kicking out losers never goes out of style. I shut the door and turned the key. The truck sputtered, then roared to life, like it knew this moment mattered. I pulled away slowly, not looking back, not caring how many fake tears or crocodile sighs they filmed once I was gone. Let them upload it. Let them chase clout and sympathy. Because the next time they saw me, it wouldn't be on their timeline. It would be on a legal document they couldn't delete. By the time I pulled into Brad's apartment complex that night, my head was pounding. I hadn't eaten, hadn't slept. I just drove, mostly in silence, with the taste of wet cardboard in my mouth and the echo of Kevin's laugh rattling around in my skull. Brad was my best friend since high school, the kind of guy who showed up at 2 a.m. with gas for your dead truck and never made you feel like you owed him. He didn't ask questions when I called, just said, yeah man, couch is yours, and buzzed me in. His place was small, maybe 500 square feet, but it was clean, warm, and didn't come with cameras in your face. I dropped my bag near the kitchen and collapsed on the pullout. It smelled like microwave popcorn and Febreze. I didn't care. Want a beer, he asked. I shook my head. He didn't press, just handed me a pillow and let me be. The next morning, I was up before the sun. Couldn't sleep, couldn't turn my brain off. I kept thinking about how fast it all flipped, from landing a great job to being homeless in less than 24 hours. And then I remembered the letter from my grandfather's lawyer, the one I had shoved in a drawer after he died 3 years ago. Something about a trust and residual property interest. At the time, I figured it was some boilerplate estate stuff. My parents handled it, said there was nothing for me. But now I wasn't so sure. I called the lawyer's office as soon as they opened. The receptionist transferred me immediately when I gave my name. Darren, said the voice on the other end. I'm glad you called. His name was Vincent Harper, old school type, with a slow voice and perfect enunciation. He'd handled my grandfather's estate for decades. Hi, I guess I just want to understand what was in that trust, I said, pacing Brad's living room barefoot. I'm not sure what it meant, or if it even matters anymore. Oh, it matters, he said. Can you come in today? I was there within the hour. His office was tucked behind a flower shop downtown, quiet, full of leather chairs and old clocks that didn't tick. He greeted me with a firm handshake and a folder already on his desk. I wondered when you'd reach out, he said, sliding it toward me. Inside were copies of the original trust documents. They were dated almost 4 years back, signed 2 months before my grandfather passed. I skimmed the pages, stopping when I saw my name. To my grandson, Darren James Weaver, I bequeath partial ownership of the family home located at 119 Overlook Drive, the adjacent boathouse and dock structure, and 25% equity in Weaver Custom Engines, LLC. My throat went dry. What? Vincent nodded. Your grandfather had concerns. Said you were the only one who actually cared about the trade, about the land. He wanted to protect your future. So he created the trust in secret, with a clause that allowed your parents and siblings to remain in the house under the assumption that all beneficiaries would act in good faith. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling like it might start explaining things. They knew about this? I asked. Oh yes, he said. They were notified during the estate review. I remember it clearly. Your father was displeased. Of course he was. They never told me. I muttered. No, Vincent said. They hoped you'd never notice. That you'd stay quiet and disconnected long enough for them to argue abandonment. But you never relinquished your share. And you've been paying rent, which, interestingly, they never reported. He pulled out another document, a summary of rental income collected by my parents over the last 32 months. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. No reporting, no tax forms, nothing. Just silent cash pocketed while my legal ownership was ignored. I sat there for a long time. Finally, I looked at him. What can I do? Well, he said, steepling his fingers. First, I'd recommend asserting your rights formally. We'll send a certified notice of ownership and request financial disclosure for all property-derived income since your grandfather's death. And if they don't comply, then we pursue compensation, petition sale, injunctions, if needed. The law is quite clear when one beneficiary is unlawfully excluded. I swallowed hard. You okay, son? He asked. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I thought I lost everything yesterday. Turns out they've been stealing from me for years. Vincent tapped the folder. Not anymore. We drafted the notice right then and there. I signed the paperwork. By lunchtime, the documents were sent, certified, return receipt required. My parents and siblings would have it in their hands by morning. I didn't tell Brad right away. I just went back to the apartment, laid on the couch, and watched dust dance in the sunlight. By dinner, my phone started vibrating. First it was my mother. Darren, we need to talk. This is completely inappropriate. Then my sister. You're seriously doing this? After everything we've done for you? Then Kevin, you little snake. Hope you like war. I didn't reply. I just forwarded every message straight to Vincent. Let them scream. Let them scramble. Because for the first time in years, I had the upper hand. And I planned to hold it tight. The morning I started at Charleston Yachting, the sky was clear and the docks were buzzing. Sleek, million-dollar hulls gleamed in the sun, and for once, I didn't feel like an outsider. I had a clipboard in my hand, a company badge clipped to my shirt, and a decent wage waiting at the end of the week. I was finally crawling out of the hole they kicked me into. Then Kevin showed up. I was in the middle of checking a hydraulic trim tab on a 48-foot Princess cruiser when I heard the voice that had haunted half my childhood. There he is, he called way too loud. Big man with his big job. I looked up, squinting against the sun. There he was, button-down shirt wrinkled, a shiny watch that looked fake, and the same smug swagger like he owned whatever ground he stood on. I set the wrench down slowly. You need to leave, Kevin. He held up his hands like I'd pulled a gun. Relax. I'm not here to fight. Just want to talk, bro. I glanced at the shop's supervisor, who was watching from the service tent. Make it quick. He took a few steps closer, scanning the boats like he was on a shopping spree. Nice spot. Real grown-up. Proud of you. Say what you came to say. He smiled, the kind that never reached his eyes. Look, things got a little messy. No hard feelings. Mom's just stressed. You blindsided her. She dumped my belongings in the driveway. He shrugged. People say things in the heat of the moment. I folded my arms. Cut the crap. Kevin, what do you want? That's when his whole tone changed. He stepped in, voice low. I'm here to make you an offer. I blinked. An offer? Yeah. You don't actually want to deal with the legal mess, right? I mean, lawyers and court and all that crap. Just sign over your share. Quick claim deed. Clean slate. We'll throw in a payout. 20 grand. I stared at him, then laughed. You want me to give up my part of the house, the dock, the business land, because you're uncomfortable being sued? His jaw twitched. Don't be dramatic. You were never part of the plan. I took a step closer. Yeah. I figured that out when Mom tossed my books in the gutter. I'm trying to make this easy, Darren, he said. You think you're holding all the cards? You're not. That lawyer of yours can't force us to buy you out. He can force a sale, and you'll lose everything. You really want to destroy the family to prove a point? I didn't destroy anything, I said. You did. The day you all filmed my eviction like it was a season finale. His voice got sharp. You're being petty. No, I said. I'm being legal. That hit a nerve. He pointed a finger at me. This isn't over. One of the dock hands shouted over. Everything good, Darren? I nodded. Yep, just taking out the trash. Kevin glared at me for a few seconds longer, then turned and stormed off. As he passed the boatyard office, he kicked a bucket hard enough to knock it over. The foreman frowned. Friend of yours? Family, I said. Unfortunately, later that afternoon, Vincent sent a formal request for financial records, rental income, property earnings, and tax disclosures dating back to my grandfather's death. Turns out, the house had earned over $48,000 in unreported rent. The dock lease alone brought in another $12,000 a year from a local charter company. None of it had been shared. By sunset, my phone was exploding again. First, Riley, you're seriously doing this to Mom? She's been crying all day. Then my mom, after everything I've done for you, all the sacrifices. I gave you a roof, and you repay me with lawsuits? I didn't respond. By the time night fell, her voicemails had turned from guilt-tripping into rage. You want to be the enemy, Darren? Fine, but don't expect sympathy when your job finds out who you really are. That made me pause. I forwarded the recording to Vincent and blocked her number. 2 days later, I signed a lease on a tiny one-bedroom unit above a pizzeria just outside Charleston. Peeling linoleum, one window, smelled like garlic all the time, but it was mine. No cameras, no keys thrown at my chest. I installed a cheap motion camera at the door after I spotted Kevin's truck driving by twice in one afternoon. He didn't stop, just rolled slow, like he was checking to see if I was home. Brad offered to stay over that first weekend, just in case. I've seen that look in his eye before, he said. He's not here to talk anymore. I nodded. Good, because I'm done talking. I wasn't afraid. I was prepared, and so were my lawyers. Let them scream. Let them rage. The deeper they dug, the more they'd find out. They weren't just fighting me anymore. They were fighting the man their father always hoped I'd become. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer. Thought maybe Kevin had come back again, or Riley was about to throw another tantrum in high definition. But when I checked the camera feed, it wasn't either of them. It was my Aunt Denise. I hadn't seen her in a couple years. My mom's older sister, the only person in the family who ever told the truth without sugarcoating it. She was dressed in business casual, holding a Tupperware container like she was dropping off leftovers. That alone made me suspicious. I opened the door partway. Hi, Aunt Denise. She gave me a sad smile. Can I come in? I hesitated. Why? I just want to talk. Nothing dramatic. I let her in, mostly because she wasn't filming, and because part of me still wanted to believe someone in that family had a conscience. She sat down on the edge of the couch, looking around the tiny apartment like it was a museum exhibit. This place is humble. It's quiet, I said. No one throws my things on the lawn here. She nodded, folding her hands over the plastic container. I brought you some lasagna. Your mom used to make it like this. I thought maybe. I'm not hungry. She didn't push, just stared at her lap for a moment. I know you're angry, she said, but I came because I think we need to stop this before it gets worse. I leaned against the counter. Worse for who? For everyone, she said carefully. The lawyers, the money, the documents. It's messy, but we can fix it. Quietly, I laughed. You want to settle this off the record? That what Mom asked you to do? She flinched. She's scared, Darren. Your father's worried. Riley's sponsorships are hanging by a thread. People are starting to ask questions. Good, I said. Let them. She looked up, frowning. This is still your family. No, I said quietly. They made sure I wasn't. We sat in silence for a while. Then she tried again. Look, maybe you could agree to a private agreement. No public court filing. Just terms. A buyout. That way everyone can save face. Is that what this is about? I said. Their image. She didn't answer. I opened the door. Thanks for the visit. Tell them my lawyer will be in touch. She stood slowly, holding the untouched lasagna. You're really going to let this tear the family apart? I met her eyes. No, they already did that. I'm just making sure it stays that way. After she left, I checked my email. There were 4 new messages from Vincent. One was a detailed accounting discovery. Over $50,000 in unshared rental income from the boathouse and dock leases alone. The rest were screenshots from Riley's socials. She tried to spin the whole eviction into a mental health awareness post. Claimed I'd been struggling, that the family had made a hard decision out of love. She even did a fake crying bit during a live stream, complete with sad piano music in the background. But her followers weren't buying it anymore. Someone had posted the legal document I filed. Another account tagged her in a thread with a side-by-side of my soaked books in the driveway and her laughing next to a ring light. Sponsors started dropping. Fast. Then came the text. Riley, I need to talk to you ASAP. Call me. I didn't reply. Then another. I just want to fix this. Maybe we could do a video together. Clear things up. Show we're united. She wanted me to appear in a staged reconciliation. Not to heal anything, but to save her dying brand. I blocked her number. Later that week, a new call came in. From someone unexpected. My dad's business partner, Charlie. I picked up only because the number was unfamiliar. Darren? The voice asked. Yeah, this is Charlie Boyd. I partnered with your father on the engine shop. I was silent. I just saw your name on some ownership paperwork, he said carefully. It caught me off guard. Shouldn't have, I said. Your co-owner's been hiding a few things. That's what I'm starting to realize. He sounded disappointed, not angry, just stunned, like someone had pulled the rug out from under him. Your dad told me you moved out voluntarily, said you were struggling, that you signed your interest over years ago. That's a lie. I know that now, Charlie said. and I'm going to have my own legal team review everything. I don't like being lied to, especially not when it jeopardizes my business. I thanked him and hung up. Then came the final crack in the mask. I was eating a sandwich at a diner near work when I saw him, my dad, standing outside the window. I hadn't seen him since the eviction. He walked in, slow and tense, and sat across from me like it was perfectly normal. "You need to stop," he said. I didn't look up from my fries. "This isn't just about the house anymore," he continued. "You're hurting the family, hurting me. Riley's brand is sinking. Your sister can't even post without getting harassed." I sipped my water. Maybe she should have thought of that before live streaming my eviction. He leaned in, voice low. "I'm offering you a way out. You back off. We'll pay you. Quietly. You get to look like the mature one." I finally looked him in the eye. "No. You want a war?" "No," I said. "I want the truth, and I want consequences." He scoffed. "You think you're some kind of hero now?" "No," I said, finishing my sandwich. "I think I'm someone you never expected to stand up." He stood, jaw clenched. "You keep pushing this, and I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I'll talk to the press, to the locals. You think people care about your side? You'll be the villain before this is over." I smiled, stood up, and dropped a few bills on the table. "You've been painting me as the villain for years," I said. "Only now, I get to show people the canvas." And I walked out. He didn't follow. That night, I called Vincent. "I want full terms drafted," I told him. "And we're not settling quietly. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here for the truth, no matter how many people it shattered." It was late Thursday morning when Vincent called. I was on break, sitting in my truck with the windows rolled down, the smell of salt air mixing with grease and old coffee. "Got the proposal ready," he said. 3 options. I listened as he laid them out, each one clearer than the last. I knew what I wanted before he even finished. Option 1. Force the sale of all shared properties. The house, the dock, and the boathouse, through the court. Ugly, public, would gut them financially. Option 2. Accept a lump sum buyout for my full share. Clean break, but they'd never agree to a fair number. Option 3. Establish formal joint ownership with strict terms, neutral management, full repayment of back rent, and public written acknowledgement of what they'd done. "I want the third," I said. Vincent hesitated. "You sure? You'd have to stay tied to them." "I'm not doing this to disappear," I said. "I'm doing this so they never get to lie again." We finalized the terms over the weekend. I'd retain my legal share of the house, boathouse, and company property. A third-party manager would handle rent, leases, and income. They'd repay all back rent to the tune of $21,300 over 2 years in quarterly payments. Miss a single one, and the whole property goes up for sale. But the final condition was non-negotiable. They had to issue a signed, notarized public letter admitting to their deception, the false eviction, the withheld inheritance, the live stream, and submit it to both the city records and our family association newsletter. Vincent smiled when he read it. "That's the kind of clause you write with steel in your spine." We sent it Monday morning, gave them 5 business days to respond. It didn't even take 2. Tuesday night, they showed up. All of them. My mother, father, Kevin, and Riley. Outside my apartment. No warning. Just standing there, stiff and wide-eyed like they were attending a funeral. My funeral. I didn't open the door. Just spoke through the camera intercom. "You're trespassing. We just want to talk," my mom said, her voice trembling. "Not without legal counsel." "Darren," my dad snapped. "This is ridiculous." I hit the record button. "Say that again?" They all went quiet. "You spent months calling me a leech," I continued. "And now you're standing on my doorstep because you don't want your friends and business partners reading the truth." "We're family," Riley said. "Why would you do this to us?" "You threw my toolbox in the rain," I replied. "You mocked me live, Riley. Remember that?" Silence. Kevin shifted. "Look, maybe things got out of hand." "Maybe," I said. "You filmed me getting kicked out like it was reality TV." My mom took a shaky breath. "Let's just work this out privately. No letters. No outside managers. We can fix this. Just us." "No," I said. "You don't get to control the narrative anymore." "We're willing to pay," my dad said. "But not with our names dragged through the mud." "You already did that," I said. "I'm just making sure people see it." Riley stepped forward, eyes red. "People are already pulling sponsorships. I lost a brand deal yesterday." "Then maybe your followers don't like liars." She blinked fast. "You were always the favorite," she said bitterly. "Grandpa left you everything. He didn't trust us." "No," I said. "He just saw who you all really were." They stood there a moment longer. Then my dad muttered something under his breath and turned away. One by one, they left, Riley crying silently as Kevin slammed the passenger door of their car hard enough to make the alarm chirp. I didn't say a word, just watched them go. That Friday, Vincent called with an update. "They signed," he said. "All of it. Full acceptance." I didn't speak for a second, just breathed. They insisted on a clause sealing the written admission from social media, but it will be on public file, and the rent repayments are locked in. And the manager? Already appointed, neutral, licensed, unbiased. I nodded slowly. "Good." He paused. "You did it, Darren." "No," I said. "They did it to themselves." The following week, I started hearing whispers through extended family. My aunt and Raleigh texted me. "Just saw the newsletter." I had no idea. My uncle emailed. "Your dad told us you left to chase some girl. I'm sorry for believing him." And slowly, cracks began to show. I heard the bank had frozen the shop's line of credit after reviewing ownership inconsistencies. The Doc Lassie contacted Vincent directly, unsure who to pay now. Riley's follower count dropped by 20,000 in a week. And through it all, I stayed quiet, didn't gloat, didn't chase revenge. I just lived, alone, independent, steady. They had tossed me out like garbage. But now they paid rent to the man they tried to erase. A few weeks passed. The screaming stopped. The threats died down. My phone stopped lighting up with fake apologies and family emergencies. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was having lunch at a small cafe near the marina, halfway through a tuna melt, when someone slid into the chair across from me. It was Charlie, my dad's longtime business partner. He looked tired, like he'd aged a decade since the last time we spoke. I read the trust papers, he said without even saying hello. I nodded. I figured. He leaned forward, arms crossed, voice low. You want to know what your dad told me back when your grandfather died? I put my sandwich down. He said you weren't interested in any of it. Said you left town. That you told the family you didn't want the responsibility. I blinked. What? Yeah, Charlie said. He showed me a handwritten note. Claimed it was from you. Said you didn't want anything tied to the Weaver name. I stared at him. That never happened. He sighed. I know that now, but I didn't question it. Your dad was grieving. I figured, maybe you just wanted out. I shook my head, speechless. Charlie pulled a folded slip of paper from his coat pocket and slid it across the table. This is a copy of the letter he gave me. You might want to show it to your lawyer. I unfolded it. It wasn't my handwriting, not even close. There it was, forged, sloppy, a mess of fake humility and false statements. I, Darren Weaver, hereby decline any and all interest. I didn't finish reading. My stomach turned. Your dad started lying the second your grandfather passed, Charlie said. He never wanted you to have any of it. And now he's losing control. I nodded slowly, gripping the edge of the table. I should have asked questions, he said. I'm sorry. You didn't know? I said. But now I did. That night, I sat in the apartment staring at that forged letter while emails and messages rolled in one after another. The cracks were becoming impossible to patch. The next surprise came from Kevin. Out of nowhere, I got a text. Kevin, can we talk? Just me and you. No lawyers. I nearly ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a bar off a back road, halfway between Charleston and Wilmington. Neutral ground. Public enough, he wouldn't start anything. He walked in alone, hands in his pockets, eyes down. For the first time in months, he didn't look smug. He looked hollow. He slid into the booth across from me and didn't speak for a full minute. Then, he said, he always told us you were nothing. I blinked. Who did? Dad, he muttered. He always said you were the weak one, the failure. That grandpa only liked you because he felt sorry for you. I said nothing. Kevin swallowed hard. He made it sound like we were protecting the family, like keeping you out was necessary. So you didn't screw everything up. And you believe that? He looked ashamed. Yeah, I did. He shook his head slowly. But you're the only one who ever actually worked. You stayed quiet, took care of grandpa, paid rent, and we treated you like trash. I didn't respond. He rubbed his face. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For real. I nodded once. Thanks. He started to say something else, but I stood up. I'm not doing this to hurt anyone, I said. But the truth was buried for too long. It deserves daylight. He didn't argue. When I got home, I found my inbox flooded. Riley's sponsorship contracts had leaked. Screenshots of her mocking followers in private group chats. Brands were dropping her left and right. One of her ex-collaborators tagged me in a post that simply said, turns out the freeloader was the only honest one in that family. My phone buzzed again. Vincent, they're stalling, he said, pushing back on the public letter. But they offered a trade. They'll give up the dock and boathouse if you let them keep the house. I stared at the ceiling. The house. The one where I learned to ride a bike. Where Grandpa let me stay up late watching boat races. The one where I was thrown out like trash, recorded for views. No, I said. They don't get that. Vincent didn't press. Understood. They can sell it, move, do whatever they want, but they don't get to pretend it's theirs. Want me to deliver the message? Yeah, I said. Tell them it's not about money anymore. It's about truth. And if they want a future, any future, they're going to have to live with what they did. He paused. Darren, yeah, you're doing the right thing. I hung up and stood by the window, watching headlights pass on the street below. The web of lies had finally unraveled. Not because I screamed louder, but because I refused to stay silent. And now? They could either face the truth or be crushed beneath it. 2 weeks after we rejected their final trade, the papers were signed. I kept all 3 properties, the house, the boathouse, and the dock lease. In return, they kept the family name, stripped of its illusions. A court-appointed manager would handle everything going forward. No more side deals, no more backroom rent swaps, just clean, legal structure. And along with the title confirmations came a certified check, $20,000 in back rent. Every cent accounted for, down to the penny. Vincent even joked that they must have hired someone new to fill out the paperwork, because this time the forms were miraculously legible. But that wasn't the part that made it real. It was the letter, on embossed stationery, signed by both my parents, filed with the city and mailed to every member of our extended family, to whom it may concern. Over the past several years, we knowingly withheld legal and financial information from our son, Darren Weaver. We falsely claimed full ownership of property we did not solely possess. and in doing so, misrepresented facts to friends, relatives, and business partners. We acknowledge that Darren was never a dependent nor a burden. He contributed financially and legally, and we regret participating in public acts that portrayed him otherwise. We apologize for our deception, and we are committed to honoring the new terms of the estate. This statement is made of our own free will and under the guidance of legal counsel. Vincent read it out loud in his office, and when he finished, he looked at me. They never would have signed this 6 months ago, he said. They never would have signed it if I hadn't walked away, I replied. He nodded. That night, I moved into a better apartment, one with hardwood floors, a view of the water, and enough room for a toolbox that didn't have to live in the back of my truck. No garage rent, no cameras, no live streams, just peace. The job at Charleston Yachting was going better than I ever hoped. My supervisor bumped me up to lead tech on 2 major accounts. I'd even started saving for my own small craft, something modest, something mine. A few days later, I found a package in my mailbox. No return address, just my name in blocky handwriting. Inside was a small tape recorder and a folded sheet of paper. Play me. Gee. I sat down on the couch, thumbed the rewind button, and pressed play. My grandfather's voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, it means something went sideways. I tried to write it down, but I figured you'd want to hear it straight from me. I saw how they treated you, son. Not just after I got sick. For years, you were never the loud one, never the favorite. But you were the one who showed up. You fixed things. You worked hard. You didn't complain. I left you those properties because I knew they'd try to bury you. But I wanted to make sure you'd always be okay. Not rich. Not famous. Just okay. The rest of them? They'll spin their stories. They'll cry and claw and twist it all around. That's what people do when truth shows up with paperwork. But I saw you, and I'm proud of you. Hold your ground, Darren. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. The tape clicked softly at the end. I just sat there for a long while, eyes closed, holding the little recorder like it was made of glass. A few days later, my mom sent one final message. We're sorry. I hope someday you'll find it in your heart to forgive us. I miss you, Mom. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because forgiveness isn't always about reopening doors. Sometimes, it's just about locking them and walking away without the weight. I kept the letter. I kept the properties. I kept the name my grandfather gave me. And every time I walk along the dock now, boots scuffed and calloused hands in my pockets, I think about what it means to be okay. Not perfect, not vindicated, just steady, grounded, free. In the quiet of my new life, I still hear my grandfather's voice sometimes, like it's stitched into the wind. I made sure you'd always be okay. And finally, I believe him.